Take their seats and settle down. Good morning and a warm welcome to all of you to the Global Summit on Responsible Corporate Governance and Sustainability Reporting, Cross Border Trends and Critical Issues in Accounting and Assurance, brought to you by ASSOCHAM. I'm your host, Anisha Nair Dhawan. I request all of you to please put your phones on silent and let us start the proceedings of the conference with the lighting of the ceremonial lamp. I would request our esteemed dignitaries to please come forward to light the ceremonial lamp. I would request Ms. Preeti Malhotra, Chairperson, Associate National Council of Corporate Affairs, to please accompany our chief guest, Srimati Anita Shah Akela, IANAS, Chief Executive Officer, Investor Education and Protection Fund Authority, IEPFA, and Joint Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India. I would request our other esteemed dignitaries to please join in. CA Dr. Ashok Haldia, Ms. Helen Brandt, and Mr. Basudev Mukherjee. Thank you all for initiating this auspicious beginning to the conference. I request our esteemed dignitaries to please take their place on the dais. Please put your hands together and welcome on stage Srimati Anita Shah Kela, IANAS, Chief Executive Officer, Investor Education Protection Fund Authority, IEPFA, and Joint Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India. Please welcome Ms. Preeti Malhotra, Chairperson, Associate National Council of Corporate Affairs, Company Law, and Corporate Governance. We have CA Dr. Ashok Haldia, Chairman, Associate National Task Force for Accounting Standards, Sustainable Accounting and Integrated Financial Reporting. And we have Ms. Helen Brandt, OBE, Chief Executive, ACCA, and Mr. Basudev Mukherjee, Assistant Secretary General, ASSOCHAM. We are very grateful to our dignitaries for taking the time to come here. I would request Ms. Preeti Malhotra to please welcome our chief guest, Srimati Anita Shah Akela, with a plant. Thank you, ma'am, for taking the time to come here to discuss this very important issue on responsible corporate governance and sustainability reporting. I would request Mr. Haldia and Mr. Basudev to please welcome Helen Grant with a plant. We are grateful to Helen for coming all the way here to attend this conference. Thank you. Responsible corporate governance provides the foundation for ethical and sustainable decision making, while sustainability reporting communicates the outcomes of these practices. Today, companies are increasingly prioritizing these concepts to align with regulatory demands, investor expectations, and societal needs. Corporate social responsibility, diversity and inclusion, technology integration, and enhanced ESG focus are important boardroom topics to ensure resilience and relevance in a dynamic business environment. Stocks regulator SEBI mandates that the top 1,000 listed companies file detailed sustainability reports like the BRSR. However, sustainability reporting is gaining traction across all sectors as a best practice driven by regulatory changes, stakeholder expectations, and global alignment. Today, we will discuss cross border trends and critical issues in accounting and assurance. I would now request Ms. Preeti Malhotra to please give the welcome address. Please put your hands together for Ms. Preeti Malhotra.
A very good morning and warm welcome to all for this ASSOCHAM ACCA Global Summit on Responsible Corporate Governance and Sustainability Reporting. I warmly welcome our chief guest, Ms. Anita Shah Kela, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Our keynote speaker, Ms. Helen Brand OBE, Chief Executive, ACCA, CA Dr. Ashok Haldia, and Mr. Basudev Mukherjee. All eminent speakers of the dais, ladies and gentlemen. We all know that sustainability is the practice of achieving organizational goals, minimizing compromise on finite resources, or impacting the lives of future generations. The financial implications of sustainability are becoming extremely apparent, and all three pillars of sustainability, be it economic, social, environmental, are important for every business looking to achieve long term success. It is therefore, I think, imperative for all classes of companies, be it listed or unlisted, to measure and report the impact on ESG and be transparent about the risks and opportunities. ESG is becoming a critical determinant for all stakeholders in corporates, that is, whether it's consumers, employees, business partners, shareholders, investors, regulators, legislators, and importantly, I would say the local communities. It is therefore important that while putting ESG objectives into action, the right tools and technology are used to ensure its success and make it transformational, measurable, skillful, and impactful. Today, as a society, we stand on the cusp of an exponential curve and change, and we are in the age of disruptive innovation and converging technologies which are changing the way reporting and assurance are being done. Also, companies that transparently integrate sustainability into their reporting practices will definitely attract far more investment capital than others. And I would say, in an ambiguous and very uncertain world today, investors everywhere are looking for information that can give them an edge. And study after study shows that sustainability data can help identify more competitive, more profitable, less risky companies with higher long term returns and a lower cost of capital. We know that there will be profound shifts driven by geopolitics, disruptive technology breakthroughs, and environmental challenges. Investors will need to contend with the sweeping effects of the energy transition on users and suppliers of energy, the escalating impact of climate based events, and new risks associated with the widespread adoption of AI across every sector of the economy. And such unprecedented changes bring unprecedented opportunities too. The energy system transformation presents one of the most significant investment prospects of our time, with strong returns anticipated by many investors in low carbon energy, green transportation, and energy storage solutions, especially in private markets. 2025 could be a pivotal year for voluntary carbon markets, offering critical funding for decarbonization, especially in developing countries. Also, today, investors can systematically identify companies that are better managed, more resilient, and adaptable to change. Research shows that firms managing material social risks, example, workforce issues, supply chains, product safety, and community impact, consistently outperform their peers. Also, a growing momentum of shareholder rights, I would say, can play a very critical role and influence the corporate behavior and drive sustainable value creation. ESG reporting has, I think, to be taken very seriously by corporates, and it's no more a question of optional. I would say it's more or less become mandatory, especially for the top listed companies, and thanks to regulatory interventions, both globally and in the Indian market. A lot in the Indian context, I would say, a lot is being done in the area of sustainability. In India, while we have the voluntary guidelines that have been issued by Ministry of Corporate Affairs since quite a few number of years, we also have the BSR SR issued by SEBI on a voluntary basis. But as we all know, in June 2023, SEBI came out with guidelines where BSR SR core was made mandatory for the top 1,000 listed companies, of course, in a glided path that they have prescribed. And also for its value chain. So while while mandatory reasonable assurance. So for the value chains, of course, there's still a time period. I think still 1 year to go. 1 year, probably by 1st April 2025, they have to report for the 31st March financial year. But that's just subject to limited assurance. But the BSR-SR core reporting is subject to reasonable assurance. And I think India is one of the first countries where reasonable assurance has been mandated for the top 1,000 listed companies. And under the guidance of SEBI, ASSOCHAM, along with the other two chambers, formed the Industry Standards Forum. And we came up with industry standards for reporting, which probably will be notified by SEBI soon. And this was to harmonize all different practices followed by different corporates to make it easier for them to follow the guidelines. These, of course, have to be yet notified by SEBI. Coming to assurance, as assurance on BSR-SR core is profession agnostic, I would say it's a great opportunity for professionals to train themselves, acquire the requisite skills and expertise, and become assurance providers. While, of course, besides the existing, there are several standards that are available and which SEBI has clearly specified that any of these standards can be followed, but IASB, that is the International Auditing and Assurance Standards Board, has issued a new global standard specific to sustainability assurance, and which, of course, the assurance providers can probably in future adapt to. Finally, I'm sure that increasing transparency and focus on improving governance across entities in India. I mentioned this before that besides listed entities, the expectations of stakeholders associated with unlisted entities and other forms of organization structures are increasing. And those who are responsible for delivery should be ready to contribute what it takes for responsible corporate governance and reporting. I'll end here, and I once again thank our chief guest, Ms. Sanita Shah Kela, for being here today. Helen Brand, thank you. She's come all the way from UK, and thank all our dignitaries here. I hope you'll find these sessions useful. And again, a very warm welcome to all. Thank you.
I would now request CA Dr. Ashok Haldia, Chairman, ASSOCHAM National Task Force for Accounting Standards, Sustainability Accounting, and Integrated Financial Reporting, and former Secretary, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, to please address the audience. Please put your hands together for CA Dr. Ashok Haldia.
Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, a great pleasure to be with all of you for such an important conference on responsible corporate governance. We have moved from an era and a debate and discussions and framework from corporate governance to responsible corporate governance. Long back, we have moved from an era of a shareholder based model of governance to stakeholder based model of governance. The conference today emphasizes what is that responsible corporate governance means, and for that perspective, what is the ESG and sustainability reporting is all about. It's a great pleasure that we have with us today on this occasion Ms. Anita Shah Akela, the Joint Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, who has been very passionate about the environment and social and governance aspects. And some of her social media posts are very educative, illuminative, and very, very thought provoking. It's also a great pleasure that we have Helen Branch, the Chief Executive of ACCA, traveling from UK to be with us. ACCA, we all know, under her leadership, has become truly a global organization. And, and ACCA has been making a strong footprint in India. ACCA has joined with the ASSOCHAM in pursuing and advocating and promoting the idea of good governance, the transparency, and the accountability. I was discussing with her some of the good work that they have done internationally in terms of research in these areas, how they can relate into the conditions those are prevalent in India and bring out those those outcomes, those global outcomes relevant to India, and then send it across to all these stakeholders. ASOCHAM, as you are all aware of, under the guidance and leadership of Ms. Priti Malhotra as a chairperson of the Corporate Governance Committee, has been promoting the responsible corporate governance, not only the law, but also the practice of it. We at the ASOCHAM are also very active in promoting, in advocating, and pursuing the cause of quality in financial reporting, the auditing, the governance of the audit committees, the governance of the board when it comes to the financial accountability and probity, ESG, and also the sustainability reporting. As we all know, the responsible corporate governance is nothing but the trust that you are able to build upon amongst the stakeholders, be those investors, be those employees, be those government, be those community at large. And also, what it requires is transparency, its accountability, its ability to generate the faith of the stakeholders in what you are and what you are doing. And what you are doing is what is in the interest of all these stakeholders. We all know, and has been often been saying at the government platform and others, that the law in India, be those Companies Act, be those SEBI's listing requirements, are very comprehensive, adequate, and I would say far more than what is normally required, prescriptive in terms of what the corporate governance is, what it should be, and also in terms of the ESG and ESG's requirements. They can easily be benchmarked with the best legal systems, best legal pronouncements worldwide. What we need is the practice of that law in letter and spirit. It's not that that's only a problem in India. We find globally what the law says and what the industry practice. There's a huge divergence. The largest MNCs do not believe in what they target and what they commit in terms of net zero. They do not believe in the programs that they initiate to achieve the net zero. And they are not transparent in terms of disclosures as to what they have been doing in terms of ESG or the climate change. And that's what we call is the greenwashing. That problems is also in India. The challenge before all of us finally is that that problems and the challenge with all of us is to bridge that gap between what ought to be and what it is. We as the SOCHM and also at various committees are trying to bridge that gap, bringing about good practice of the ESG governance. While we all know the ESG would means the environmental, social, and the governance, but what is most important is the governance. I would believe that instead of ESG, it should have been GES. If there is a proper governance, the environmental and social aspects would automatically fall in place. So the question comes, how does the board assume that responsibility? How does that board is able to permeate that culture across the organization, across its value chain. And that is what is the challenge that the industry faces. Today, the conference that has been structured addressed all these aspects. We have the policymakers, we have the business leaders, we have the stakeholders coming together and deliberating all these aspects. One of the aspects which often has been ignored about as to how you integrate your ESG and sustainability into your HR practices. Unless you bring that cultural transformation within the organizations, ESG would remain only a boardroom agenda and a boardroom discussions. And that's what this conference would all mean about. I'm sure at the end of the conference, we would have series of recommendations that we will communicate to the government. We also have in the conference, unlike many other conference, as to have an outsider's perspective as to how they look at these aspects. We have Mr. Bhattacharya, the eminent, all of you would have a name, editor, group editor of Business Standards. He told me how he's concerned about this, on this topic. But I said, you are the most concerned. We need to know how outsiders feels as to what are we talking about, what is this law is all about, and why, and what is the practice of the law, and is it relevant? Does it affect the economic development of the country? Is it is it relevant for long-term sustainability, viability, and success of any company, of an economy, or of a country? So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and I hope you will enjoy this conference.
For the keynote address, I would like to invite Ms. Helen Brandt, OBE, Chief Executive, ACCA. Please give a round of applause to Ms. Helen Brandt.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be with you here today. And of course, I'd like to extend my heartfelt welcome to all the esteemed guests, fellow speakers, and participants joining us here today. Your presence really underscores the significance of the topics we're discussing, and I'm really grateful to share a few of my thoughts and those of ACCA with such a distinguished audience. At ACCA, we're really proud to partner with this significant global summit, and I'd like to thank all our friends at ASSOCHAM for their incredible dedication, energy, and creativity that they've brought to staging the event. Events like this remind us of the power of collaboration and to shape meaningful dialogue, and perhaps even more importantly, meaningful action. The theme of this summit, responsible corporate governance and sustainability reporting, could not be more timely and more relevant, and it provokes many responses, stimulates so many ideas, and raises so many questions. It speaks to the core of how businesses must evolve to meet the demands of a changed world while upholding accountability and ensuring long term sustainability. At ACCA, we've done a lot of work, a lot of research on this with our members and partners, and we've found that the definition and the reality of what responsible corporate governance means has changed and is changing. Perhaps a generation ago, governance issues might have been reduced to a tick box exercise and a distraction from the serious business of making money. No more. Now it is at the heart of a board's activity, and that's not because directors have had some kind of moral or ethical awakening. In fact, it's because of the pressures of an ever more complex and complicated and chaotic world, which demands that corporate leaders pay ever closer attention to outside forces, which imperil not just their bottom line, but their very existence. We see that responsible corporate governance means directors must serve as the guardians of financial and economic stability and sustainable growth. They must defend the reputation of their business by promoting transparency, accountability, and integrity. They must embrace the long term over the short term, building resilience and trust. And they must deliver on their organisation's strategic objectives, as well as meeting regulatory, statutory, and compliance requirements. Modern businesses, as I said, operate in increasingly complex environments where the interplay of financial, environmental, and social factors requires a new kind of leadership. And I'd at this point like to introduce you to what we believe is the business leader's best friend, and that is the professional accountant. In our increasingly sophisticated organisations, the people who command a 360-degree view of operations across functions, departments, sites, and even territories are the finance experts, professional accountants. This is why we have seen the professional accountants emerge as strategically essential elements in business success. And it's not simply their organisational oversight that makes them irreplaceable. It's also that blend of skills and attitudes that they bring to their work. Professional accountants crucially serve as guardians and interpreters of data, increasingly vital at a time when the volume of information available expands exponentially. They play their part in gathering the essential information needed to understand an organisation's risk by presenting the information clearly and consistently to decision makers in a common language. So I'd like to just end by touching on some thoughts about the concept of sustainability, which in just a few years has moved from the fringes to the very top of board agendas everywhere. It used to be viewed, of course, as a vague aspiration, not quite relevant to day struggles of running a business, and this has changed. Now, any business with any ambition to survive and thrive must pursue a strategy for growth with sustainability. And not just because it is the right thing to do morally or ethically, although it is also a business issue. As governments and regulators, investors, consumers, and potential employees increasingly demand that any organisation they choose to support, trade with, or work with must display a long term commitment to a sustainable future. More than ever, a dedication to a sustainable future is a statutory and regulatory necessity, as well as a moral license to stay in business. So at ACCA, we've long advocated for sustainable business models and integrated reporting that considers impacts on society and the environment alongside financial results. So we're hugely supportive of the introduction of sustainability reporting standards across the world and have been supporting our members, the wider accountancy profession, to build the skills that are critical to success. And we're delighted to see how their adoption is accelerating. They're an important driver of focusing attention and driving good decisions on sustainability issues that will take us all forward on this critical journey. Whilst our stakeholders in India, professional bodies, regulators, trade associations, businesses, and professionals focus on corporate governance and sustainability issues with a shared mindset and ambition, ACCA is and will continue to be delighted to share our professional insights and best practices. We're committed to partnering with you in pursuing opportunities and addressing challenges in this vital area, ensuring that we collectively contribute to a more sustainable and equitable future. So, finally, I'd like to end by paying tribute to you all in the audience for supporting this timely and important event, and for everything you have done, everything you are doing, and for everything I know you will do in the future to build responsible businesses and healthy economies which fuel sustainable growth, protect the future of the planet, and give all people everywhere the chance to enjoy lives that are stable, safe,
and secure. Many thanks and have a great conference.
I would now request our chief guest, Srimati Anita Shah Akela, IANAS, Chief Executive Officer, Investor Education Protection Fund Authority, IEPFA, and Joint Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India, to please give the chief guest address. Please put your hands together for Srimati Anita Shah Akela.
Good morning to all. Thank you, Preeti ji, Chairperson Asocham, for inviting me to this August gathering. Mrs. Helen Brand, welcome to India. Ashok Haldia ji, Vasudev Mukherjee ji, and all the dignitaries of of the dais. The topic of today's sem- uh, seminar is very important. It's very critical. Responsible corporate governance and sustainability reporting. And this is in an era where the businesses are now continuously, increasingly held responsible and accountable for what you give back to the environment, to the social and the governance practices. And the role of accounting and assurance in ensuring this kind of a transparency has never been more important than what it is today. What is responsible corporate governance? It is about ensuring that the companies operate in a manner that is ethical, transparent, and accountable. It involves implementation of policies and practices that promote integrity, fairness, responsibility in the business operation. Also, adhering to the legal regulatory requirements and going way beyond the compliance to embrace the ethical standards. But here, a point that I would like to bring across is that it's not only important to report what is being done, it is also important to do what is required to be done. And this is in the interest of all of us. All of us, because if we have to sustain Mother Earth over a period of time, we need to do this. We cannot have afford to have a polluted rivers, polluted landfills, polluted air that we breathe. So it's very important that we all embrace sustainable practices in our daily lives, in our corporate lives, in the companies that we run. There are issues in accounting and assurance. As I understand, there is a complexity of the ESG metrics that have been formed. There is a lack of standardization of these metrics. Different countries have different standards. It becomes a little difficult to operate in those lines sometimes. The data quality and reliability, the assurance cannot come much from that. So, integrity of the data and the reliability of data has to be assured. The assurance of the ESG report for enhancing the credibility and trust is very important. And over and above that, we need to look at the regulatory compliances. What would be our frameworks? The government frameworks have been aligning the interest of the shareholders. We've been helping to manage the risk, enhance operational efficiency, and also secure long-term financial viability. The government is more into regulating the corporate integrity for market confidence, and we look at balancing that without stifling the dynamism that underlies a very strong economy, what we are looking at now. And I'm sure that our role will continue to be that of a facilitator and uh, and a mover with giving you a nudge towards more sustainable governance. Insofar as MCA is concerned, we have introduced a e-adjudication and a e-consultation framework, which is for streamlining the legal proceedings and consultation. We are moving more towards a ease of doing business era, more towards an ease of exit of business doing era. It should be as easy to do set up a business in the country and as easy to take out if it's, a business is not viable or if some company wants to move into some other field. We have migrated from version 2 to version 3, which is more user friendly. There are certain issues in the migration which are being from time to time taken care of. We have decriminalized the offenses under the Companies Act 2013, marking a significant shift towards a more business friendly regulatory environment in the country. The amendments into the Competition Act have been providing a robust mechanism and will deter any anti competitive practices. We aim to ensure that India is a ground for the world to come and invest, play here, do the business, and make the profits grow sustainably. However, we also aim to prioritize our local industries, the MSME sectors, but there is a hand holding which is there as they are a very important value chain partner, and fair play would always have to be the business norm. And as the digital competition is growing, we are also studying the AI and the competition markets. And the industry stakeholders are encouraged to participate and suggest what is best in their interest, what is the best for the economy, and to achieve our economic agenda for Viksit Bharat at 2047. Finally, then I also come to the NAFRA, the National Financial Reporting Authority. Various orders have been passed in order to give a higher quality assurance of the auditing requirement. NAFRA has recently recommended 40 standards on accounting, on auditing, and standards on quality management under Section 34A of the LLP Amendment Act that is under examination. I hope these actions are in sync with the spirit of good governance and those who vote for transparency and they agree with the transformation. Coming to insolvency, that is the ease of exit that we look at. IBBI has made a lot of processes very easy. We are also looking at easing the home buyers' perspective from IBBI side, where we are uh, promoting project-based insolvency. We are looking at how to ease the issues that the real estate is facing. We are also have issued a notification for insolvency professionals to act as IRPs, bankruptcy trustees, etc. Guidelines have been issued in December on December 2nd. Now, coming to the insolvency bankruptcy code per se, there has been a clamor for amendments, and we are looking at the amendments. We had issued a paper in January 23, wherein we received a lot of comments from the corporates, from the professionals as well. And one of the biggest outstanding thing that we received was that NCLT needs to be it. There is a recognition of the fact that NCLT is overburdened. We've got about 41,000 odd cases with NCLT. There is a talk that there is a lot of delay in admissions, and then IBC is somehow taken as a recovery mechanism, but it's a rescue mechanism. It was always intended as a rescue framework for the businesses which were failing and to rescue them, put them back into the market. What IBC unfortunately is always judged by the recovery that, only 31, 32%, 33% of the claims were recovered. But we need to look at the fact that about 1,000 plus companies' resolution plans were approved and they were put back into the economy. So this is where IBC comes into picture, where there could have been a loss of labor, there could have been loss of manpower, loss of economic work. All that is again now come back to the economy, and we need to do it faster. Yes, we do recognize that this needs to be made faster. For this, all stakeholders have to come together to make the whole system work. It's just not NCLT. where we've been requesting the banks that wherever you find that there is an NPA, don't wait for it to become an NPA at SME 0 or something. Get it into the IBC framework. We move for quicker admission so that the company is resolved before the value of the company is lost. Many a times we see that a company has started going into distress, and by the time it is resolved or liquidated is 4 to 5 years, and the value of the company comes down very exponentially. So, therefore, you would not be able to get the kind of return that you're looking at. Now, when we examine the reasons as to why there are so many delays, one, of course, the banks are putting in or the creditors are getting the company late. When we examine the reason why admission is taking so much of time, in other countries, for instance, we have cases. Most of them are debtor in control is what is the model which is followed by most of the country for bankruptcies. But in India, we have got a creditor in control, so the company always has a interest in retaining. The promoters have an interest in retaining their company, so they continue to litigate. So because of these litigations, the admissions get delayed. So we need to look at this, that where there is genuine business failures, let us respect that and try to get that out. We also notice that the litigation continues as interlocutory or application during the process as well, which is again delaying the process. So my request would be that let us reduce the amount of litigation that we are entering into and try to get the company rescued as quickly as it could be. For this purpose, insofar as operational creditors are concerned, IBPI has also introduced a paper on voluntary mediation for operational creditors. So these kind of things for MSMEs and small operational creditors, they should definitely be looked at very positively. So this would also unclog the NCLT. So this being for the ease of exit from MCA's side, I am very thankful to Asocham for inviting me here and giving me a chance to present the government's view. I wish the seminar all the very best, and I'm sure there'll be great learnings coming out of it, and especially cross border, where we learn from the other jurisdictions how well they've been performing and what best practices we can pick up from there. With these words, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm sure once those changes in the insolvency code come about, will be a great relief for the practitioners as well as the creditors and other stakeholders in the company's insolvency process. I would now request Ms. Preeti Malhotra to please present a memento to Srimati Anita Shah Akela. We are very, very grateful to ma'am for coming here and sharing her thoughts on responsible corporate governance and what the government is doing to ensure there's greater transparency and greater sustainability reporting amongst all companies. I would now request CA Dr. Ashok Haldia and Mr. Basudev Mukherjee to please present a memento to Ms. Helen Brandt. This memento, of course, is a remembrance of her presence here and her vision and wisdom that she has shared with everyone. Thank you. I would now request Mr. Basudev Mukherjee, Assistant Secretary General ASSOCHAM, to please give the concluding remarks and the vote of thanks. Please put your hands together for Mr. Basudev Mukherjee.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude this inaugural session of the Global Summit on Responsible Corporate Governance and Sustainability Reporting, Cross Border Trends and Critical Issues in Accounting and Insurance, I extend my deepest gratitude to all who have joined us for this very special session. Corporate governance is the cornerstone for sustainable success and ethical business practices. As we conclude, let us remember that responsible corporate governance and transparent sustainability reporting are not merely regulatory requirements, but they are the bedrocks of trust, resilience, and ethical business practices. By engaging with shareholders and proactively managing risk, we can create long term value and drive sustainable growth. Our journey towards integrating these practices into the corporate fabric is fostering a culture of transparency, accountability, and sustainable growth. Today, we have explored various dimensions and best practices that can help us uh, achieve these goals. I encourage each one of you to take the insights and discussion from today in our everyday um, into our everyday business practices. By doing so, we will set a higher standard for ethical conduct and sustainable development in our industry. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to our to our chief guest, Srimati Anita Shah Akela, IAAS, Chief Executive Officer, Investor Education and Protection Fund Authority, IEPFA, and Joint Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Thank you very much for your valuable insights and making us aware of all the work being done under your guidance. I would also like to acknowledge the valuable contributions of Ms. Preeti Malhotra, Ms. Helen Brand, CA Dr. Ashok Haldia, and Mr. Ashok Bhattacharya, whose presence and thoughts have enriched the session. We can create long term value and drive sustainable growth. Achieving long term success in business requires a balanced focus on ESG. It significantly now how swiftly we implement corrective measures to address any factors that could hinder realization of sustainable development goals. Uh, at this point, I would like to thank our MOU partner ACCA for once again working with us to organize this very timely conference. Finally, I extend my gratitude to all participants for your presence and enthusiasm. Your engagement is key to the success of this summit. As we proceed to the next sessions, I encourage everyone to actively contribute to the discussions and collaboration so that we can create a more sustainable business environment for all. May the discussion and collaboration here lead to impactful and lasting change. Thank you very much.
Big thank you to all our esteemed dignitaries on stage. I request all of you to please gather for a group photograph in front of the tables.